Peter Rose, Longwood Currency Trading. It's closing in on toward the end of July 2021. And I wanted to ask the question, what does the mathematical Bessel function have to do with currency trading? Stay tuned. It could be interesting. If you're not interested in clues and stuff, go get a cup of coffee, because that's where I'm headed right now, to get a cup of coffee, and then we're going to talk about Bessel functions and currency trading. You always have to stir the coffee, because otherwise the little water molecules don't mix up good with the grounds and you don't get a good cup of coffee. All right, I've got that coffee and I'm ready to go. It's such a beautiful day out. Maybe we'll go outside and chat a little bit while I walk around with my coffee. And then again, maybe not, because drinking coffee, I'm old, I can slip and fall, and then you wouldn't find out what a Bessel function has to do with currency trading. I think the Bo dog wants to go out with us. Bo, you're becoming a YouTube celebrity. Let's go out. A Bessel function is in differential equations. It's used in physics to describe certain physical conditions. It's an expansion series. It's a shit mess is what a Bessel function is. It's really complicated. And when I was getting my degree in physics, long time ago, graduated in 72, in my second or third year of undergraduate physics, we bumped into this Bessel function thing. And I was taking advanced math at the same time that I was taking the physics that needed that math, because I didn't start out as a physics major, I started out as a chem major. And so when I changed over to physics sophomore year, I was a year behind in my math. So I was constantly learning the math at the same time that the physics guys were expecting you to be able to use it. The difference was that the physics people actually showed you how to use the math for practical purposes, and the math guys just did it as an exercise. And then here's the math, and here's the corollaries and all this other stuff. So we come into Bessel functions, and I was in the math class, and I just was shaking my head, and my teacher said, "So what's the matter?" I go, "I don't fucking get this at all. I don't understand anything that you're talking about here." And he goes, "Why? It's so simple." Well, look, go to Google and look up Bessel functions, B-E-S-S-E-L, I think it's J. Sabat is the designator for a Bessel function. And you look at that, and even if you have some technical math or physics training, very few people will run into these beasts because they are complicated. The solutions can be complicated, but I didn't even understand how to get from point A to point A sub point A2. I didn't vision it. I couldn't see it. And so this math teacher, a wonderful fellow, he became a friend, said, "Meet me after class. Let's find out why you don't understand this stuff." And so I met with him, and he sat there on the blackboard, and he laid it all out for me, and I went, "That's it?" And he goes, "Yeah, that's it. That's what we showed you the other day." No. You didn't show me that the other day. You showed me the stuff, but I couldn't see it. I couldn't visualize it. I couldn't see what was happening. So this guy had a physics background, so he was now, instead of showing it to me like a mathematician, was showing it to me from the physics standpoint. So I could visualize why that particular equation came about through the solution of a differential equation, and how you then went about and applied the final solution of a Bessel function and how it was used, what it represented. And I think at that point, I was taking karate at the same time. I was a couple of years into my karate study, and karate is a very complex process. And I was using my experience in martial arts, trying to take this very complicated thing and make it simple, and applying that to my physics and my math and all my college studies. And I'm going to go back inside because it's pretty bright out here. Pause this. All right, so look, I don't want to beat this Bessel function thing to death, because who gives a shit about Bessel function? The point is that very few people would disagree with the fact that a Bessel function is a really complicated thing. It's very complicated. And I think that currency trading, when viewed externally by someone who might not be familiar with it, or even those that are doing it, would appear to be a very complex thing. And it is a complex thing. Look at all the moving parts in a currency, not only in the market, but in just the trade process. You know, how do you do your preliminary analysis? How do you create your underlying rules, for example, to start with? And what's your process approach to integrating those rules in a chronologically significant fashion? And then what's your process for looking and seeing if the trade is, if there's a worthy trade there? How do you look and determine what your entry process is? Where's the entry going to be out? How do you set your risk tolerance level? Are you going to stage? Are you not going to stage? Are you going to get out at a set target? Are you going to set a short stop, a long stop? What are you going to do? How do you put all those pieces together? And so I look back at my mathematical study, and even though, I mean, they don't just dump you into physics or math and say, hey, here's a Bessel function, let's figure this out. There are an inordinate number of preliminary steps that you go through in order to get to the point where the solution of a Bessel function is a reasonable expectation of the student. And so it's the same way in trading. It's the same way in driving a car, right? You don't try to tackle a complex thing unless you understand all of the little simple things first, because the complex thing is just a collection of really simple things. And that's all just platitudes and stuff, and that's what the limit of most teachers is look at how simple this is. It's based on all these little simple things that you've learned before. Why the fuck can't you figure this out? If you've ever tried to bake a cake or even just follow a recipe to cook a meal, and you don't have a lot of experience, you rely on the recipe. So here's the ingredients, get all the ingredients. And here's the steps. But that's not teaching you how to cook, that's teaching you how to fix that recipe. So by working and getting those ingredients and putting that recipe together doesn't make you a chef. It just shows that you're able to read. In currency trading, if you're getting started or if you're at the low intermediate level, you've got a couple of years of experience, and you're not having the success that you think that you should be, it's probably because of the way that you're trying to learn this stuff. It's insufficient just to learn the pieces like a recipe and then expect the dish that you're going to cook to come out okay. Why do you heat the meat up to a certain temperature when you're putting it in the oven? Why does the sauce perhaps contain an egg? Why would you want to use a little balsamic vinegar as a counterpart to some of the other things that you're cooking in the meal? Maybe you're going to do a little dash of balsamic vinegar in your sautéed carrots that you're doing. Why? If you're just following the recipe, then you got to remember that recipe by rote the next time you go, and you're only going to be able to cook to the final results of that recipe. You're not going to be able to abstract that off and go, well, but geez, I think I'll cook asparagus with scallops. I mean, it's a totally different thing. You need another recipe. Well, how do you get to the point where you can just say, oh, what have I got in the refrigerator here? Oh, I got shrimp and I got some couscous and here's the spices and herbs that I have. I'll throw something together. How do you get to that point? It's by experience. And that's stupid to say. Oh, it's easy for you to say. I've spent 2 years trying to do this stuff and I still can't do it. Well, but again, it's how you figure out each individual piece of information that goes into making up the solution set for this complex problem you're trying to solve. If you're sitting down after watching a bunch of YouTube videos and watching people making trades on the screen, that's simply by watching a cook on TV cook a bunch of meals. You're not going to be able to duplicate that. You're not going to be able to innovate until you've done that hundreds and hundreds of times. But what if you had the chef right there? And he was showing you how to cook something, but in the process of showing you how to cook that one thing, each time he looked at an ingredient, he told you, well, this is the reason we're using this ingredient instead of that ingredient because of XYZ. That other ingredient is too acidic for the dish that we're going to make. Well, what does that mean? And why is what we're going to make acid? And why won't this additional acid complement that? And you say it's not going to complement, it's going to take away from it. Why is that? And you go through each one of those little pieces, not as individual units, but as a collection of concepts, not a collection of things. Salt is a thing, but it should be more than a thing. In physics and math, we have things called vectors. Electrons move in a direction and they have a magnitude. Baseballs move in a direction and they have a magnitude. That's a velocity component. A velocity is a vector. It has a magnitude. How fast is it going? And what direction is it going in? But it's just a thing. It's called velocity. Your car has a velocity. 30 miles an hour. But if you don't really understand what that means, that car has a magnitude, the weight of the car, and it has a direction. And if the weight of that car is pointed at a little kid bouncing a ball in the middle of the street, there are going to be significant consequences as opposed if you're on the highway. So if you don't understand that, you're not going to be able to differentiate between the highway and the little kid. If you don't understand salt and what it is and what it's used for, other than, oh, I got to use a lot of salt because it tastes better. You see what I'm talking about? So what do Bessel functions have to do with currency trading? They're both complex systems, but they can be broken down into very simple pieces. But what you have to understand is it doesn't make any difference if you understand those pieces, but you don't understand the order that those pieces should go in. This is what I call process-oriented trading. It's what I teach if someone wants to learn trading with me, which I hope not many people do because I'm retired and I don't have a lot of time, and that's why I charge a lot of money. Because I'm having a lot of fun doing this, and I'd like to know that the person who's going to do it with me is equally committed to that. I get so many emails. How do you do this? What do you mean, how do you do this? First of all, how old are you? Because how you do something is dependent on your age. If you're 24, I'm going to have to tell you something different than if you're 54. But you don't want to hear that. You just want to know how to do it. How do I cook this chicken? Throw it in the fucking pot. Let it cook. When it browns, you're all set. Okay. If that's how you want to go through your life, you're not going to be comfortable within that life because you don't understand what's going on under the sheets. All you see is the complexity and your frustration and your inability to deal with that complexity. And so you're going to try to bull your way through life or trading, not really understanding the simplicity of accomplishing your goal if you just stop for 5 seconds and figure out what it is you're trying to do. What makes it so complex? What are those pieces? And you're not going to get that reading a book. All you're going to be doing, all you're going to accomplish by watching videos and reading books is learning what the pieces are. You need to understand that the pieces have individual properties, like velocity has a magnitude and a direction. When do you use that velocity? When does that come into play? What is it for? And how do you create that velocity? That makes it fun to do physics or to do math that has velocity components in it. It makes it fun to drive the car when you understand that there's an engine in there with the cylinders popping up and down and the gas fires, and that's what pushes the cylinders, and that's what's driving the car. You don't need to know how to fix it, but have an appreciation for the thing that you're in. That's all. Be aware of your life. If you're thinking that you're going to sit down at the trading desk and knock off a couple of trades a day and make a few $100s on a $10,000 account, you're out of your fucking mind. You say, well, I'll just use a bigger account. I'll use a $50,000 account. It'll be real easy to make $200 because a $50,000 account, that's $50 a pip, right? And so all I got to do is make 4 pips, and I make a couple of $100. Great, 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 slick. You just go ahead and you think that. You think that. And look at, you see these guys on YouTube making $30,000 a day on some trade. And they don't have that big of an account. Yeah, but they got 200 to 1 leverage. So today they make 30,000, tomorrow they lose 100. They'll tell you about the 30, but they won't tell you about the 100 loss. If you're not a reasonable person to start with, I'm sorry, you're just destined to lose your money, and you're going to pay a lot of money to these assholes that they're not going to teach you how to trade. They're only going to tell you what to do. They're going to tell you what a head and shoulders fucking pattern is, and this is what you do when you see it. The problem is you're never going to see it the way that they see it, and because you don't understand the underlying characteristics of what's happening from an economic standpoint to create that pattern, what you're supposed to do as a result of that. So again, think about when you look at your trading and you're going to sit down at the trading desk. Think about what I said. Well, you got to go onto Google and look at this Bessel function thing and look at that if you don't have any mathematical background at all, you're going to look at that and it's going to look like some mouse shit all over the floor or something. It's a mess. It's a scramble. You don't even understand the notation that's being used. Now you figure out how somebody is going to be able to learn how to figure that out. And you're going to say, I don't have any fucking interest in learning how to figure that shit out. I'm not going to go through all that work to learn those simple parts to do that. And yet you're going to sit down at the trading desk and you're going to look at a trade and you're going to say, oh, that looks like a trade. I think I'll put that on, without going through the preliminary analysis of the simple pieces that go into making up that trade, what the correlation of all those pieces are, and the chronological order that those pieces need to be ordered in so that you have a valid process of execution of whatever friggin' delusional thought that you have about sitting down at the trading desk. Peter Rose, Longwood Currency Trading. Have a great day and have a great trading day despite my tirade.